Let's get to the next tier, and then we can maybe compare afterwards. Where I think I call this on the bleeding edge tier. It's staffs that I think are doing the things you have to do offensively, defensively to win championships in the NFL. They just haven't quite gotten to that level where they're almost the untouchable level that we'll see when we get to it. It's the Buffalo Bills, where Sean McDermott has done more with less defensively than his track record of doing so is as good as it gets in the league right now. And then Joe Brady, obviously, your former LSU OC, former I believe it's Panthers OC at one point, now the OC of the Buffalo Bills. I think what he does offensively, again, it is up there in the tiers of your sharp offensive minds around the league. Denver Broncos in this tier with Sean Payton, and then Vance Joseph at DC, who had one of the league's best defensive defenses, is doing a lot, is right amongst the wave of those new age defenses that are giving offenses so much to deal with at the line of scrimmage, so many different looks. That staff speaks for itself. And again, they were probably the closest of all these teams
to being in the next one.
In the next tier. Green Bay Packers, Matt LaFleur, your head coach, Adam Stenavich at OC, and then Jeff Hafley, who had a top 10 defense last year in his first year as defensive coordinator. Not a lot to say about them. It speaks for itself. Los Angeles Chargers with Jim Harbaugh, Jesse Minter, Greg Roman kind of being the elephant in the room here. I call this the on the bleeding edge tier. I don't think anything Greg Harbaugh does is quite on the bleeding edge.
Greg Roman?
Yeah, but it's distinctly Greg Roman. It is unique amongst the NFL and what they do. But Jesse Minter and Harbaugh carry this to this tier quite easily. Those two guys, as good as it gets to their positions. And then the Washington Commanders with Dan Quinn at head coach, Cliff Kingsbury at OC, Joe Witt Jr. at DC, but obviously Dan Quinn responsible for the defensive side of the ball. The results speak for itself. First year going to the NFC Championship game. That's it. That's the end of this tier.
Cliff Kingsbury, how much more creative can your offense get? We've seen him have success numbers of times in college and in the NFL. He's probably going to be a head coach soon, so we're going to get to see his montage, his highlight tape this year. We're going to see a lot of cool stuff from Jaden Daniels and that offense. Obviously, Dan Quinn, we love. You know what you're going to get when you play against the Chargers. I like this staff because it just feels no bullshit. It's player-led. Yeah. And the one non-player, Greg Roman, is inflicting pain upon the defensive line. So he's a player by default in that scenario. I love the Packers staff. And, one guy that's not on the list here is special teams coach Rich Bisaccia, who is highly respected and experienced. Matt LaFleur, you talked about, he's one of the most underrated offensive minds, head coaches in the National Football League. He's not explosive with personality. He's under the radar. They play well. Hafley's defense has been really good, and they got even better this offseason. The Broncos is the group that I think could be in the next one. You already said that, though. I love Sean Payton, his staff. Joe Brady feels like he just brings some sort of confidence juicing and puts it on to Josh Allen every week. Like when I was at my best, when I was at my best in the NFL, Aaron Kromer was my offensive line coach, and he didn't give me any coaching advice. He would just say, "Go be a freak, go let your freak flag fly." I feel like that's kind of the similar situation that Joe Brady has with Josh Allen every week. And it must be nice to be able to have your caddy just hand you driver and say, "Swing away, big dog." You know what I'm saying? I love this on the bleeding edge tier here.
All right. We actually didn't do it for the last one, but I'll put you on. So for each of the last two tiers, so unspectacularly solid and on the bleeding edge, give me one from each. If you had to pick one from each, which staff would you pick?
I would go with the Eagles because I love Vic Fangio and Nick Sirianni's a winner. And I would go on the bleeding edge. I would go with Sean Payton's Denver Broncos.
Okay. I think for the unspectacularly solid, give me the Raiders staff. Pete Carroll, I think he's incredible. And it's just like a fun head coach as well to have. And I think Chip Kelly, of those OCs in that tier, whereas Tommy Rees, Josh McDaniels, Arthur Smith, Kevin Petula, he's the one by far and away I would want. of those guys. So give me that. And then on the bleeding edge, just give me the Chargers. I love Jim Harbaugh. As I think he is, if you're just head coaches, he's not lower than 3 for me. I think he is a spectacular head coach, spectacular leader of men. And then just like his teams always overperform at the NFL level. They just always have. All right. As good as it gets here. No, not breaking any ground here. Kansas City Chiefs lead it off. Andy Reid, Matt Nagy, Steve Spagnuolo.
3 head coaches, 2 of which who have been coach of the years, head coach of the years.
So it's a staff. Los Angeles Rams, Sean McVay, Mike LaFleur is your OC, Chris Shula your DC, and obviously Shula had some great results last year. Minnesota Vikings, head coach Kevin O'Connell, OC is Wes Phillips, but obviously Kevin O'Connell more of your play caller there. Brian Flores your DC. San Francisco 49ers, Kyle Shanahan. I mean, you don't even need the OC DC, but Clay Kubiak is your OC. It's like Clint Kubiak's brother, Gary Kubiak's son. And then Robert Saleh is your DC. And then Baltimore Ravens is the last.
He's back with his buddy. Saleh's with his buddy.
Yeah, back where he began. And then Baltimore Ravens, Jim Harbaugh at head coach, Todd Monken at OC, and then Zachary Orr at DC. Anyone you would flip. So you said the Broncos is the staff you would say is the closest to as good as it gets. Anyone from this that you would have the Broncos above?
No.
Yeah, I think this is the tier. I think the most debatable is maybe the Ravens.
Yeah.
But you have a Super Bowl winning head coach.
Because now I'm starting to look at these teams. I'm thinking about rosters too. And it's just like if you can hand people, you can hand a kid a Ferrari. He's not going to know how to drive it. But like if you hand one of these good coaches a Ferrari, they at the very least are not going to mess it up. And when I think about with what Todd Monken gets to tinker with every week, that's awesome. Guys like Jim Harbaugh, who have done it for so long at the head coach spot, nothing phases them. Same thing with Jim Harbaugh, or with John Harbaugh, rather. Sorry, it's these guys have been around so long as head coaches. You don't need to reinvent the wheel, and also you got great players, so just go let them play. It's the same thing we talked about with the Eagles, man. Like so many good players, the spoils are crazy.
The one, obviously, the least experienced staff of this bunch, Minnesota Vikings. Kevin O'Connell, only a 3-year head coach, but in those 3 seasons, he has a 13-win season and a 14-win season.
Come on.
He did it with a middle-aged Kirk Cousins and a journeyman Sam Darnold. And then Brian Flores, amongst, if you're ranking DCs around the NFL, he's no worse than 5. He's probably higher than that, truthfully.
Yeah.
So you have a staff that is, like I said, as good as it gets on both sides of the football. That's what it takes to be in this tier. And that's why the tier is only 5 teams deep.